It actually happened.
في هذا اليوم التاريخي لشعبنا في جنوب السودان نقول للعالم أجمع والغارة الأفريقية خاصة غنوا معانا غنية الحب والفرح والليلة عيد ميلاد فرحنا. غنوا معانا غنية الحب والفرح والليلة عيد ميلاد فرحنا.
Good afternoon, everybody. Are we enjoying our time? It's a happy day. I haven't slept all night. I'm really proud of South Sudan.
South Sudan has an opportunity to start on the right footing and become the true star of Africa.
All these people have expectation. They had their aspiration. They had hope that one day when they have their country, all the things that they have been missing will come to them. So,
if we have security, that we respect each other and we love each other, and we cannot attack each other anymore, that means we are free. But if we're still fighting each other, we are not free. If we're still going through poverty, we are not free.
Independence is a freedom of speech, is a freedom of your stuff. What I mean is stuff by American is, I mean freedom of your properties.
Oh God, we praise and glorify for your grace on South Sudan.
In July 2011, the Republic of South Sudan was born, becoming the world's newest country. A referendum in January 2011 set the stage for independence. In the vote, 98% of South Sudanese chose to break away from Sudan to become a new country. The quest for independence and sovereignty dates back to the 1960s, when South Sudanese nationalists first made the call. However, it wasn't until the early 90s that the call for a referendum for self-determination was firmly established as a basis for negotiation by the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA. But independence came at a heavy price. The SPLA, then led by a charismatic soldier, John Garang, fought for 23 years with the government in Khartoum. 2 million people lost their lives in this war due to famine, disease and war-induced poverty. Millions of South Sudanese were displaced from their settlements inside the country. Some were forced into exile in neighboring countries. As the war intensified and dragged on into the 1990s, many South Sudanese emigrated to Europe, North America, Australia and New Zealand, searching for a better life. Our story begins in Canada, a country where thousands of South Sudanese now live and call home. Ottawa, the Canadian capital, is a beautiful city with interesting Gothic architecture derived from the country's rich British colonial heritage. A thriving South Sudanese community, still in touch with its roots, lives in this city. Catherine Hakim, an Ottawa resident, has spent many years working with South Sudanese community associations in Canada. She knows the community's story quite well.
South Sudanese were you can generally categorize them into three. When the war started, there were people that were caught up in government-held areas and remained there for most of the period of the war. There were those that were caught up behind government-controlled areas and now were integrated into the SPL and became part of the movement. In fact, part of the fighters in the bush. I would call it the bush. And then there were those within the government-held areas that managed to also move out of South Sudan, like into the north of the country. So, and then from there went out into diaspora. So we have Southern Sudanese that remain in Southern Sudan in government-controlled areas. We have those that remained fighting in the war, and we have those that actually managed to get out of Sudan into refuge into other countries. All Southern Sudanese have been affected by the war in one way or another. I don't believe there is any single Southern Sudanese family that has not experienced the impact of the war, either by losing a family member or by undergoing difficulties or by being displaced internally within the country or by going out. So they have felt the impact of the war one way or the other.
The city of Kitchener in Ontario is home to many Canadians of immigrant background from around the world. Kitchener is also home to a large South Sudanese Canadian community. Joseph Oyuak, a settlement worker with over 15 years of experience working with various immigrant communities, including South Sudanese, gives a profile of the community and some of the challenges it faced in Canada.
There was lots of challenge because being from South Sudan, South Sudan was a marginalized place at first. So most people coming here have had a culture shock that living in cities, urban cities, was a challenge. Learning how to drive, learning how to board a bus, learning how to access the banking system. Everything was totally new. But in fact, with a matter of time, with the support through the program that is provided through the Immigration and Citizenship, people are walked through one-on-one until they become independent. Giving that people have opportunity to learn, and so people picked up. But there were challenges to adapt into these new communities. Each person, of course, had been traumatized in many ways. Death in a family. Poverty.
Oh, Canada, our home.
Like most first-generation immigrants, South Sudanese Canadians are a tightly knit community, meeting for social events and keenly maintaining contact with family, relatives, and friends in the mother country. During the war, many participated in lobbying their adopted country to take punitive actions against Sudan. They lobbied for sanctions to be imposed on the Sudanese government and urged Canadian companies not to invest in the oil sector in Sudan on the grounds that oil revenues were used for buying weapons, which were in turn used for killing South Sudanese. In addition, South Sudanese Canadians also maintain a keen interest in the politics of South Sudan. During the referendum in January 2011, they, together with other South Sudanese immigrant communities around the world, fought for and won the right to participate in the referendum from abroad. The independence of South Sudan therefore had a powerful impact on South Sudanese Canadians because most have a personal connection to the long war in their country of origin. On May 16, 1983, a predominantly South Sudanese battalion of the Sudanese Army rebelled in the town of Bor to form the nucleus of the Sudan People's Liberation Army, the SPLA. When the fighting started, Abeny and Charles, who currently lives in the city of London, Ontario, was there to witness it.
Oh yeah, I still have nightmares from that day. On the 16th of May 1983, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a lot of gun sounds from nowhere. We were not expecting anything to happen, but that morning there was gunshot, and we wake up and asked my father what is going on. He told us that there's a lot of crisis in the city today, so you guys don't go anywhere, you stay in the house. So we stayed in the house, and a few minutes later we saw the people in uniform and guns just approaching the area and shooting people in the neighborhood. So I witnessed that 3 people on the street were killed. So it was a big tragedy to us, and we didn't know exactly what was going on because of the age. We're in that age of just don't know what is going to happen.
Madut works for the Canadian government. As a small boy during the war, government militia destroyed his village in South Sudan and forced its inhabitants to flee for refuge. Madut himself spent over 10 years in refugee camps in Ethiopia and Kenya before settling in Canada.
To be precise, it was around 86 when my dad has already been transferred north, and my mom, my stepmoms were in Wow with my aunt, who has been a resident of Wow for a while. And it actually came when the SPLA, which is the Sudan People Liberation Army, overran the town of Rumbek. And the Sudan armed forces, the troops that were dislodged from Rumbek, arrived in Wow. I think it was around mid-morning, and they started like firing, and people were like running everywhere. And you know, they were like mad by the military band. They were like shooting. They were taken to the military headquarters in Wow. Then in the evening, because my aunt was she owned like a drinking place. I don't know how you call bar, yeah. So one of the people who was actually dislodged from Rumbek, who speaks Dinka, and he had known my aunt, later came and like he explained, you know, the new things that is coming, you know, the fact that the SPLA is now stronger, and you know, all these things. So it sunk into me a little bit, and then we left Wow to go to the rural area, and that was like the first time that I came face to face with the rebellion. Like they were already in the countryside, and that went on, and I guess their increasing numbers was a worry to the government that led to the counterinsurgency campaign in 1987, which led to my displacement at that point. My journey from Marialwa or Madut, which is my village to be precise, was prompted by this displacement, and it was actually a wide counterinsurgency campaign in that year. It was happening everywhere. Like we thought that being closer to Wow will help us because from 85, 86 we have had a massive campaign happening in northern Bahr el Ghazal because it is a frontier area, and the organized militias were like roaming there. But it didn't. It actually, you know, came to our door too. So moving from my village with the other displaced towards Ethiopia is a journey that will like remain, you know, indelibly marked in my brain, because it took almost 2 months, and I must say, if it had gone for a week, I would have actually died, because in the process, sometimes we work in places where there's no footpath. I got scratches on my leg, they got infected. If you look at my leg, I have scars all over the place. And to add to that, there were some areas too where it was very uncertain. You cannot find something to eat, and literally we have to survive on 3 leaves. Thank God Southern Sudan has different things that you can try, even if you have never eaten those things before.
What you want, Bamba. What do you need? What you want, Bamba. What you want.
The war have affected many people in Southern Sudan. Like you see, I end up here in Canada, not just because I choose to come here, but it's a part of the war that bring me here.
When he was a small boy in the city of Juba in South Sudan, Charles Gindalang, who goes by the stage name CK, lived through a rebel siege of the town. All roads to Juba were blocked. Government troops were pinned down in foxholes and the town was only accessible by air. In 1992, rebel SPLA troops captured the town briefly. The aftermath of the attack left an indelible trauma in CK's mind.
It was really a mess and I was young, but it's a memory that I will never forget.
What do you remember exactly about it?
What I remember is sounds come to my mind, sounds of sounds like a thunderstorm, but it's a sound from the weapons. And the background is messed with the dead people, which are included children's and also soldiers, but mostly innocent people like civilian citizens. And I can remember my neighbors weren't even there. Some ran to the Nile called Supuri to just cover themselves there. So when the bullet was landing, they may just run into the water, so the water can resist the bullet speed. So it was bullets raining day that time.
Did you see any dead bodies, anything like that?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I seen even part of the soldiers after the war was done. They were carrying all the dead body and they putting in a car, in a big car like a garbage car, you know, putting all the body and they're gonna burn it or damn it.
Apart from the trauma experience that is common among those who lived through the war, the death of close family members and forced exile in refugee camps in neighboring countries is a memory that many, like Abeny and Charles, cannot forget.
War actually is not a good thing to happen among people because war took lives. War took life of my husband, my brother, my father, same day, same time, and it was really a very awful time of my life.
The worst thing about war is that when you are displaced, like from a child perspective, is that first of all your entire childhood is lost, and the displacement itself is a prison. It is like as if you have entered a world that you cannot leave because you don't know when the war is going to end. The camp has become your place. You cannot play freely like a child, and you have to stay with other children in an environment that does not allow you to express your childhood. I'm not saying this to diminish other worst things that have happened. People have lost their lives. Innocent people who were maybe caught up in the right place at the wrong time by the definition of the oppressor. There are a lot of Southern civilians who were slaughtered without even having not taken any side in the war. Like, this is a painful experience, but for me personally, the most painful thing is the world that the displacement construct around you as a child when you get into that situation.
Sala Khartoum, Nori Talaga, Nam Anina Rujal, Sala Namud Malo. It's okay. It's okay. Nam Anina Rujal, Sala Namud Malo. Finally, man. Finally, man. took long, but that's how it is. Finally we got this.
General Salva Kiir Mayadi. I swear by the Almighty God. Do hereby swear by the Almighty God that as the President of the Republic of South Sudan, that as the President of the Republic of South Sudan, I shall be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of South Sudan. And bear true allegiance to the Republic of
When
South
President
Sudan.
Salva Kiir took the oath of office as the first president of an independent South Sudan, the event was the icing on the cake for many South Sudanese Canadians. At last, the long suffering of their people would be repaid, it seems, by the birth of a country they will truly call their own. Across Canada, the community celebrated with dance and song. But independence offers room for reflection about the country that the South Sudanese want for themselves. Marginalization, racial, religious and political segregation were the reasons the war for independence was waged in the first place. And as South Sudanese cheer the birth of their new country, the question, what does independence really mean, remains top in the minds of those who suffered and paid the heavy price to be free.
For me personally, is many people can say that means is freedom and independent, having your own country and be happy in your own country. But to me, independent means paying back my own people that I lost during the war. They didn't die for no reason. So when I get that independent, it means that my people, the old South Sudanese, over 3 million that died during the war, they are now alive because they achieved the goal.
The independence of South Sudan means 3 things for me. One is that it is an affirmation that in life, when a people are seeking something that is actually geared towards getting the justice for the injustice that has been meted out against them for a very long time, there is always a light in the tunnel. And that, to me, confirmed that the aspiration of South Sudanese who have struggled from 1800s to the present day has been fulfilled.
Independence of Southern Sudan, first of all, is a freedom of speech, is a freedom of your stuff. What I mean is stuff by American English, I mean freedom of your properties. It's a freedom where you know yourself, you have a rights. Just because back then there is no freedom of speak, or freedom of having your stuff.
How are you guys doing? Yeah. The Shuluk dance earlier was
Like
so beautiful, I still can't get over it.
Across the globe,
we have another dance coming
the
up.
South Sudanese
Feel free to
community
join
too
in, guys.
has expectations about how government should function in their new country.
I really think that our leadership has to consider this diversity that every Southerner must or should see himself or herself reflected in government. Meaning that the government must combine meritocracy with the representation of its people.
We are expecting that, first of all, there has to be a well-established rule of law, because the fact that independence has been earned right now does not mean that violence stops right away. We want security, we want well-established systems. So we want the rule of law to be established, we want peace, we want good governance.
Freedom means development, stability, and freedom of speech. Let's talk, say everything, bring everything on the table.
This is the time, this is the year, this is the moment we've been waiting for. It's taking us years of civil war. We lost our heroes and we lost our homes. Now we have one chance, we have one voice. Oh, we have the power to choose our future. So come on, come on, come on, come on, my friend.